evening, everyone. Welcome to the book club. So this Sunday, we have for you a book by Elif Shafak. It is being presented by Sunita Shetty. And Sunita and I were just talking about Elif Shafak, about how prolific she is, how she brings out books so quickly one after the other. And I noticed that each one of the books has some novelty value, and it is, of course, very engaging. Elif Shafak's books are not those that you set aside or pause with, they are page turners. You want to finish, and you do. So here is a lady who's making news in the world of literature, equally proficient, it would seem, in Turkish and English, writes in both languages. And here is a rather intriguing book called The Island of Missing Trees. So Sunita, we look forward to what you have to say about the book. Sunita Shetty is a marketing professional, and she is a wonderful presenter. So we look forward to her take on this book. Over to you, Sunita.
Thank you so much, Moini. Good evening, everybody. I just have a few slides, that I'd like to share for all of us to take a look at. So that is the author, that is Elif Shafak. Yep, and that's the book, The Island of Missing Trees. As you can see, it's won many, many awards. Elif Shafak is like Moini said, is a prolific writer. She's somebody who's written many, many books. She's 19 published books, 12 of which are novels. She's British-Turkish origin. We've discussed her a lot in the book club. Moini did 10 minutes, 38 seconds. It was a book that got listed for the Booker. 40 Rules of Love. We did also, I remember I also did the Bastard of Istanbul, a book that, I loved very much. I think it was 40 Rules of Love that I read, and I just fell in love with her writing. I mean, it's an amazing book. So if you've not read it, I highly recommend 40 Rules of Love to start with. And after that, I don't have to say anything because I'm sure you'll just want to read more and more of her. She is, her books have so much to say, and she says it so beautifully. She's won many, many awards. She's an activist. She speaks a lot for women's rights, on political issues. She's currently in trouble with the Turkish government for her writings. The Erdogan government has been prosecuting her for various things that she has written, and so she hasn't returned back to Turkey in many, many years. She currently lives in London. She spent time in the United States teaching in various colleges. So truly a very, very inspiring author. I want to tell you now itself that this book review is not going to do justice to her writing. So please do pick up her book and read it. It's a book that I enjoyed tremendously. Like all her books, there is no way that it cannot touch a chord with you. Now, this book, The Island of Missing Trees, is set in Cyprus. And for those, I put this map up because if there are people like me who, when you talk about Cyprus, you know that it's an island in the Mediterranean somewhere, then here's where it is, in the Mediterranean, close to Turkey, and there's Greece on this side. And the reason I point out these two countries is because Cyprus has got populations from both these countries. There are a lot of Turks and lots of Greeks that inhabit Cyprus. But what many of us may not know, or at least I didn't know till I read the book, is that Cyprus is a country that is divided. There is a green line that passes through Cyprus that divides this island into two parts. Into the north and south, it's divided by religion and by ethnicity. So the north is Turkish Muslim, the south is Greek Christian. And the north has been occupied by Turkey. It is called the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, a region that is not recognized by any other country in the world except Turkey. Turkey is the one that recognized it, self-declared. But the green line that goes through it is now the UN buffer zone that is there. The rest of it is the Republic of Cyprus, which is a presidential democracy. So the book is based in Cyprus, right? The story is based in this beautiful island. It's called the Island of Love. This is where Aphrodite came from, was born here. An island of beautiful beaches, clear water, beautiful flora and fauna, but carries this burden of being divided, has this open wound that still exists, a wound that a past that is very, very palpable today in the present day Cyprus that is there. And the author, when Elif Shafak decided to write a book about this as the theme, she found it very, very difficult. It's such a contentious topic, and she didn't want to take sides. She wanted to tell a story without actually taking sides. And it's a difficult thing to do when the wound is still so open. How does one actually present a story to be able to sound unbiased about what is happening? And that's when she found her answer in a fig tree. And a large part of the narration of the book is through the eyes of a fig tree. Yeah, a fig tree that is there. The story is about a Turkish woman and a Greek man who fall in love in the midst of the civil war that happens in the 1970s. So that's where the story is based. I want to tell you that the book begins with this. It's dedicated to. Let me move to my next slide. Why did I lose it? Yeah, it's dedicated to immigrants and exiles everywhere. And the uprooted, the rerouted, the rootless, and to the trees we left behind, rooted in our memories. So it's a lot about, she really brings the whole story together of what she's trying to say, using the metaphor of the tree, of roots, of being rooted, of being unrooted, of this fig tree being buried and unburied. And we'll talk about that as the book goes by. Fig trees, when they're taken to colder climates, the older generation of Cypriots and people from the Mediterranean actually bury the tree in winter. So they create a trench and they bury the tree, so it goes down horizontal through the winter, and then when spring comes, they unbury the tree and they sort of put it up again, and it grows and it flourishes and it bears fruit. So it's through the story of the fig tree that we're taken through various themes of what is going on in Cyprus, and also a lot of current day themes, right? The themes of migration, there's theme of pain, there's theme of generations and silence and wounds, and all these that are woven together using the tree that is there. So I'm going to stop sharing and take you through the story. I'm going to start by reading the first page of the book, which is called Island. And I'll just read the first page because I think it'll set the story in context. Island. Once upon a memory, at the far end of the Mediterranean Sea, there lay an island so beautiful and blue that the many travelers, pilgrims, crusaders, and merchants who fell in love with it either never wanted to leave or tried to tow it with hemp ropes all the way back to their own country. Legends, perhaps. But legends are there to tell us what history has forgotten. It has been many years since I fled that place on board a plane, inside a suitcase made of soft black leather, never to return. I have since adopted another land, England, where I have grown and thrived, but not a single day passes that I do not yearn to be back. Home, motherland. It must still be there where I left it, rising and sinking with the waves that break and foam against its rugged coastline, at the crossroads of three continents, Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Levant, that vast and impenetrable region vanished entirely from the maps of today. A map is a two-dimensional representation with arbitrary symbols and incise lines that decide who is to be our enemy and who is to be our friend, who deserves our love and who deserves our hatred, and who our sheer indifference. Cartography is another name for stories told by winners. For stories told by those who have lost, there isn't one. So that's how the book begins. It's set in modern day London. The story begins with a young teenage girl, Ada, who we know is the daughter of Kostas. Kostas is a Greek Cypriot who has moved to London, quite obviously. And Daphne, we know right at the beginning of the story, has just passed away. So both father and daughter are dealing with the loss of the wife, the mother that is there. We are introduced to Kostas as a man who loves trees. He's in the process of burying his fig tree that is there, a tree that his daughter knows that he's very closely linked to. In moments of, at so many times, she has caught him actually speaking to the fig tree that is there. And in all this, the mother has just passed away. We realize that nobody from her family has come to attend the funeral. And Ada is always at a loss for, there is so much silence about the history of her family, where they came from. Her parents don't share much with her about that. And then her aunt comes to visit. Her father tells her that Miriam, her aunt, is coming to visit from Cyprus. And she's a little annoyed, Ada is a little annoyed, that her aunt, her mother's sister, didn't even bother to come for her funeral. Then why is she here now? Right? It must be something to do with inheritance. But as the chapters go by, we realize that Miriam is just this wonderful person. Comes with a whole lot of love for Ada, somebody she has not seen, but is so happy to meet, wants to build a bond with her niece. She spends a lot of time cooking, so there are lots of pages of cooking that happens, of how baklava is to be made, and how she teaches Ada how to make baklava. That you need to put pistachios in a baklava to make a good baklava, and not be like the Turks and put walnuts in it. Okay, so it needs to be and not like the Greeks and put the walnuts in it. It needs to have pistachios. That's how Turks make their baklava. So there's lots about food. There's a connection with food, and niece and aunt bond, and that's when the mystery sort of, Ada understands a little more about her family. So we'll cut now and go back. The story goes back and forth. I want to tell you, in the book, she goes back from the present to the past, and every chapter is almost, between the chapters, there's a whole narrative from the fig tree's point of view, and the fig tree, every chapter, I want to tell you, that is there, that where the fig tree gives her narration of what is happening is absolutely wonderful. She's full of wisdom. It's almost like hearing your I think of my grandmother when I hear the fig tree, because she's so wise. Right? She's so wise. She has seen so much of the world. And she introduces us to so many things about the fig tree. And the most important thing is to how important the fig tree is to the entire ecosystem, to the entire world, right? We all know that Adam and Eve wore the fig leaf. And the fig tree makes it a point to tell us that Adam and Eve didn't bite into an apple. Nothing happens, okay, when you bite into an apple. But magic happens when you bite into a luscious fig. And that's actually what happened. All that we have been learning all this time is all rubbish. So it was not the apple, it was the fig. She also talks about how the Roman babies that went down the river and were found by the wolf's mother. We've all read that story of Romulus and Remus. When they went down the river, they got caught in the roots of a fig tree. So it's been centuries that the fig tree has played such an important role in our lives. And she also makes it a point to tell us as to how human beings, it's unfortunate that human beings ignore this part. They ignore trees because humans like to connect with things that have eyes, right? So we connect with animals, but we don't seem to connect with trees. And trees just play such an important part in history, in knowing how things are going. And there she is. She's been in the UK for 7 years. And she's been in the UK for longer, but it took her 7 years to actually bear fruit when she came to the UK from Cyprus. And because when you migrate from another country, when you come from another place apart from your homeland, it kills some part of you. And it takes a long while before you begin to bloom and to begin to fruit. And that's what she takes us through. Of course, she takes us through many things about insects and how and what it does for all of us. So there is a metaphor and there is a learning in each one of those chapters. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. So this is 1974. In Cyprus, trouble is already beginning. There's the beginnings of the civil war. The Greeks and the Turks are, at loggerheads. There's a lot of trouble that is already brewing there. And in the midst of all this, 17-year-old Kostas, a young Greek Cypriot, is madly in love with 18-year-old Daphne, who is a Greek Christian Cypriot, right? So there we are. There's trouble already there, right? I don't even have to state what, how that love story, what the trouble is in that love story, but there's already trouble. Now, Kostas and Daphne are very, very different personalities. Daphne is the rebel. She's got an elder sister, Miriam, who's always trying to save her from all the trouble that she gets into. She's the one who'll get up in the middle of the night and jump out of the window and go to meet Kostas, do all the things that she's not supposed to do. Outspoken, complete rebel. And there's Kostas. Kostas is an introvert, a young man who loves birds, animals, very, very sensitive. Kostas lost his father when he was very young. His mother supplies food to different restaurants, and that's how she takes care of her 3 boys. Her eldest boy is a poet, very, very well educated, and he was killed in the civil war by the Turks. And she lost her eldest son that way. Her educated, eloquent elder son was lost. Kostas is the second boy that is there, and the youngest boy, who after the eldest son was killed, joined the militant Greeks and disappeared. He just disappeared. So there's just Kostas and his mother. And Kostas' mother is always worried about him. He's such a sensitive boy. One day she was making things, she was stuffing a songbird and making that dish. And it just broke Kostas' heart. And he said, don't do it. Just don't make it. He couldn't bear to see those birds being eaten, right? The chest being broken and that stuffing being done. Once there was a heat wave in Cyprus, and the fruit bats were dying. There was there was fighting going on all around, and all that Kostas was worried about was the fruit bats. And his mom was, she lost her very educated son. She lost a very adventurous youngest son, and what she was left with was this very, very sensitive boy that was there. So that was Kostas and Daphne for you. Now they had trouble meeting, and getting caught and things like that. And that's when Kostas decided that he should speak to the owners of the fig tree. Now let me tell you about the fig tree because it's so beautifully described in the book. The fig tree is a tavern. That is there in Cyprus. It's where everybody comes. It's got wines all over the entrance, beautiful blue color windows. And right in the middle of the tavern is this fig tree, this luscious, beautiful fig tree that grows through the roof. They made a opening at the top, and the fig tree has grown through it. Rich leaves, beautiful, luscious fruit that is being used. And it was the tavern was very aptly named the Happy Fig. And because everybody was happy being there, right? It was always full of people. People loved coming there. And when they came there, they forgot about all the nonsense that was happening outside the walls of the Happy Fig. Right, lovely food, great menu that was there, and the fig tree was owned by 2 gentlemen, Yargos and Yusuf. And once again, Yargos was a Greek Cypriot, and Yusuf was a Turkish Cypriot. We know later on, as the story goes by, that they are a gay couple. They are in love with one another. Very often they talk about leaving the island so they can be free, to be themselves. And so they're caught in this cycle, like many people in many parts of the world are caught in, of whether they should leave or whether they should stay. And they choose to stay, which probably was not a good idea, but they choose to stay in the island. And so all this goes on, and one day, so the lovers meet in a little room. Yargos and Yusuf are happy to give them a little room at the back of the tavern where they can meet. I mean, they're young lovers, and the two men just love Kostas and Daphne, so they let them meet there. One day, Daphne comes very, very upset, and she's waiting for Kostas. And when he comes, there's trouble in the city. It's difficult for Kostas to reach the tavern itself, and Daphne tells him that her uncle was shot by the Greeks in a bus. And her father has got bullet injuries and is in hospital, and she's so upset because she feels that now they'll never be allowed to meet. Right, things are getting so bad, and she's weeping away. And Costa says, wait, I'll get you some water, and he steps out into the tavern, and he asks the Greek waiter to get him a jug of water. And just then, there is a huge blast. There is a bomb that has been thrown in the tavern, and Kostas is flung to one side. There are so many people that are injured, and both Yargos and Yusuf are covered in dust and rubble, but they help all the injured people. Kostas and Daphne too try and help as many people as possible. 3 Americans die, 1 English person dies, and 1 Greek waiter dies with a jug of water in his hand. So there's death all around, and Yargos and Yusuf tell these two to go away because there is trouble, and just go home. And the two of them leave from there. It's already nighttime. They just don't want to go home. There's so much of unhappiness. They can't believe what has happened around them. They go into the hills. They spend the night together. They make love, and then finally the civil war now has begun. It is terrible in Cyprus. The presidential palace has been bombed, and it's very difficult for them to meet. Daphne, because of the curfew and because of all the things that are happening, Daphne is not allowed to leave the house. In the meanwhile, Kostas, his mother, is extremely worried about what is happening, right? There is so much trouble in the country. She writes to her brother. She has a brother who's in London, and she writes to him telling him that I have just this one son, and I want to protect him. He's too sensitive, a boy, and I don't know how he will survive this. Can you please take care of him in London? I will send him there. And she also mentions in the letter that I know that he is in love with a Turkish girl, and she says, what trouble that means. So can you please keep him there and don't send him back? We'll find some excuse to let him stay in London, but so please help me. So, many days later, when Daphne has time, she gets a chance to escape. She escapes from there and goes to the tavern, and realizes, and that's when Yargos and Yusuf tell her that Kostas has left for London, and there is a letter for her. And in the letter, Kostas, of course, tells her that he loves her so much, and he's had to go because his mom has forced him to go, but he will be back. And she cannot believe what has happened. She has a letter in her hand that she wanted to leave for Kostas, but that's of no use now because he's not there. In the meanwhile, things just get worse. There is no way Kostas can return back to Cyprus. His mother and uncle succeed in keeping him back in London. He tries very hard to reach out to Daphne and to get in touch with her, but there's no way he can. He finally finds a connect to Miriam, Daphne's sister, and Miriam tells him on the phone, "Don't call. She does not want to talk to you. Just don't call her." And he says, "No, I'm not. I am going to. I want to hear it from her. I don't want to hear it from you." And some days later, there's a postcard that comes, which says, please don't contact me anymore. Now, Kostas, of course, is just so madly in love with her. And he just continues to write her long, long letters for which he gets no response at all. Now, cut to 25 years later. 25 years later, Kostas returns to Cyprus. By now, Kostas is very well known. He continues his studies in trees, and he's written many books. He takes a boat and comes back to Cyprus. He is not married. He comes back. He enters the island. He sees a lot of nameplates all in Turkish. So many trees have disappeared where there used to be so many trees. Many things have changed in the island. Kostas has found, of course, needless to say, has tracked where Daphne is. Daphne is an archaeologist now. She is not married. He finds that out as well. But there's somebody in her team, David, who works with Daphne, and Kostas, through David, sets up an appointment to meet with Daphne. Their first meeting is very casual. There is, his heart is beating very, very hard, and he almost doesn't have too many words. First of all, he was never a man of many words. But Daphne seems cool about it, and she says hi, they have a conversation. But as the time goes by and they catch up more and more, Kostas asked Daphne, saying that I met Dr. Norman in England, and Dr. Norman spoke about you, and there was a baby. What happened to the baby? I know the baby was mine. And that's when we find out that she was pregnant at that time, but Kostas had already left for London. She went to Dr. Norman, who was in Cyprus at that time, but Dr. Norman's clinic was shutting down amidst all the civil war that was there. And but she had to have an abortion. There was no way she could have had the baby. So they go to the Happy Fig, and Yaris and Yusuf, give them the room at the back for the abortion to take place. And just at that time, there is a van that comes that is shouting slogans. By now, there are already hate, posters being put outside the tavern. People know that this is a gay couple. So there's all kinds of hate messages that are being put up on the tavern, and they throw stones at the tavern. So both Dr. Norman and Daphne wait for all this to subside. But when they step out, they don't find Yargos and Yusuf. They have been abducted. So as you can see, the abortion didn't happen. She finally has the baby. She brings shame to the family. Her father is so angry. And when she is asked who is the father of the baby, Daphne tells Kostas that she lied, and she said that Yusuf was the father of the baby. So here we are, and Yusuf's family, first of all, is suffering from not knowing where he is, and now they've put on this added burden of him having had this child out of wedlock with this young girl that is there. But eventually, she gives the baby up for adoption. There's a family that takes care of the baby. She works as a nanny in that family. But within a year, the child dies of malaria, and that's what happens to the baby that she had. Eventually, they decide. So in all this, Daphne, as an archaeologist, works for the Committee of Missing Persons, and which is a UN committee which is digging up graves to find the people that have disappeared, right? Because people need closure. We need to unbury the bodies so that there is some healing that happens. And that's what she's doing. And she's also desperately looking for Yargos and Yusuf, who just disappeared that day and were never to be found. Now, things pass, and they get back together, and Kostas tells Daphne, come back with me to London. She decides to go back with him. But just before leaving, They decide to go back to the tavern because they want to see the fig tree. And when they go there, they realize that the fig tree has been infected with ants. Now, this breaks Kostas' heart, so he does a lot to help the tree, to revive the tree. And then before they leave for London, they take a cutting of the fig tree with them. But there's one more thing that happens before they get back to London. There is news that Yargos's and Yusuf's bodies have been found. And they had been tied together and thrown into a well. And that's how the body, when they found the bodies decomposed and bones or whatever it is that they found, they were there together. But eventually they had to be separated because the body of one person had to be sent to the north and one person had to be sent to the south. And that's how they were, for all their lives, they lived together. But eventually when they were found, they had to be separated. Now, they come back to London, with the fig sapling, almost immediately. Daphne is pregnant with Ada. She has a very, very difficult pregnancy, just like the fig tree, has very, very difficult time, setting roots in this new country. Ada is born premature, has trouble for the first few months, as does the fig tree. But finally, both of them do well and thrive in this new environment that is there. Just as soon as the baby is born, Daphne then goes back to working for the Committee of Missing People in London, working with Cypriots and Turks who have moved away and moved to London, when the Civil War happened. And every day she's hearing stories of pain, of separation, of wounds that are so difficult, of wounds that sometimes people don't want to talk about. They just don't want to speak about it. And she has, and it takes a long while before they open up and share with her their stories of sorrow. This takes a great toll on Daphne. We know from Ada that there were times when she would come back from school and she could smell alcohol on her mother's breath. There were pills lying at the side of her mother's bedside. But Ada grew up in a household where her father, loved her and spoke to her about trees. And she had a great love for trees as well because of her father. And her mother spoke to her about butterflies and nature. But they never spoke about Cyprus. In fact, when Daphne was working with these people in London and heard the sad story, she made Kostas promise that they would never share these stories with Ada. They wanted her to have a new beginning. They didn't want her to be burdened by the past. And in the end of the story, Ada sort of asked her father. So she and her father become close. Miriam, at the beginning of the story, Miriam had come down and she forms a bond with her niece. And, this is now the end of the story where Miriam has gone back to Cyprus. Kostas and Ada, have come closer thanks to Miriam. And Ada asks her father, saying, why did she turn alcoholic? Why did she do this to herself? Why did she destroy herself when you and mom shared such a great love? It was such a great love. You fought against all odds. She loved you so much, and she loved me so much. And why did she do this to herself? And Kostas explains it in a way that only he, in the best way that he knows to do it. And he tells her that it's like the chestnut tree that he once went to look at. There was this beautiful chestnut tree that belonged to a friend of his that was not doing well, and nobody could figure out what the problem was. They did a test on the soil, they did a test on the water, they did a test on the bark and the leaves, and everything seemed fine. So they were really puzzled as to why was the tree not doing well. And that's when Kostas dug up the soil and saw that the roots had had gone round. It's something called girdling, where it went round the trunk right at the base beneath the earth, and it was choking the trunk. And the thing is that nobody could see it because it was under the soil. And he tells Ada that that's exactly what happened to your mother. It was the memories and the past that she could not let go of, that were strangling her. And that's what took her away. So it had nothing to do with love, but it was the memory of the past that did it to her. So that is the story of the island of the missing trees, and we can open it up for discussion now.
Very good, excellent. Enjoyed it very much. I think I've asked Tarun to put everyone on. Okay, can you hear me all? Yes.
Yes, yes.
Keep everyone on the same video and
audio.
speaking,
Yes.
Video and audio, so that we can talk to each other when it comes here. So okay. So Moini, take over now and see.
Yeah. So Sunita, I mean, you told it so beautifully, as you always do, and like Chetan says, sometimes you make it sound more beautiful than it is. So. I don't know if it's that scene here, but I was wondering, you said that at the beginning you said that some of the story is narrated by the fig tree. So is it all narrated by the fig tree or some of it? And then who narrates the rest of it? Is it just third person? What is it?
Yes, so it is in third person. The rest of it is in third person. But every time there is what is happening, the story that is being told in third person, what is happening is then told from the eyes of the fig tree.
Okay, and this device of the narration by the fig tree, does it seem at all gimmicky? Now, before you say anything, let me say that Elif Shafak, of course, is a very good writer, very engaging, but she does tend sometimes to be a little gimmicky, I think. I mean, in 10 minutes, 38 days, there was definitely some gimmickiness, definitely. So, you know, let's be clear-sighted about this. We're not going to just praise the writer, right? So tell me, did you think it was gimmicky at all, or do you think it worked very well?
I think it worked very well, Moini. Because there was such great perspective that came from the tree, and she intentionally used it. In fact, if you hear her interviews, she talks about the importance of trees, of roots, of the way we look at roots, right? We all look at roots as something that is holding us down. And she says that that's not necessarily true. If you understand trees and understand roots, it gives you the freedom to be who you want to be. And she talks about the multiplicity of belonging and, of identity and things like that. And all that is, and that's what the tree narrates. That's what the fig tree narrates. If there's anything that's gimmicky, Moini, and is how everything sort of ties up in the end. It's a little bit of a Bollywood story that everything happens, the baby was there and they have another baby and everything. So everything works out well, which works very well for me. I'm just very happy when things happen like that. But there is so much more to that story that, that there are so many things that she touches and things that are happening in the world today, so it's,
yes. Yes, I mean, and it seems so needless, doesn't it? This tendency to see differences rather than similarities, and building walls instead of bridges. I'm sure everyone on the forum agrees with this. Anyway, so yes, other people, please. Next question.
Okay, questions, everyone. Just.
I think
Mukul was asked. A fig tree is a people tree, isn't it?
No.
If you look at a fig tree, that's where the figs grow. So that's one kind of tree. But if you go to Google and you ask for what is a fig tree in our language, it's a people tree. So it's actually a bodhi tree also, isn't it?
No. A fig tree is...
figs. A people doesn't grow figs.
No, it does not. It does not. So that's what I'm saying. Which tree is the fig tree? Is it also the people? Is it the people tree or is it a very different tree? Because it's also called a fig tree.
I'm not a botanical guy, but I think they may be related somewhere or the other, but not. You have in botany you have various plants come together, etc., from one basic genre. So that's how I look at it.
Maybe Sunita has something to say on that.
Actually, it could be true, Latika. I'm not sure, but in the book, when the fig tree talks about how important she is, and how people are not recognizing, and all the wonderful things that she has done, she does talk about the Buddha. So it is possible that it is the same.
That's why. So it's a tree under which he sat and where he was enlightened. So at the back, there might be that also, the idea. Maybe she doesn't bring it into the book in that fashion.
Yeah, she doesn't. But it must be the same, like Satish said, maybe the same strain or the same.
I think Dr. Bharucha is the one to tell us about that.
We have a botanist in our group called Leslie.
Yes.
He is a botanist. Leslie, can you clarify on this enormous problem of the fig tree?
Yeah, may I respond to this?
Bharucha, tum bolo ya Leslie, we have a very famous botanist.
I will say,
Yeah,
they both come from the same family actually.
Exactly.
Ficus, I think they both come from the same family.
Yeah. That's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. I think
Dr. Bharucha has raised his hand.
And there's one more thing, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Blood-locked is something that happens when the roots are generally grown in a pot. When a plant grows in a pot, the roots get girdled in itself, and it gets entangled, and that's what is called a girdle.
Yes.
It's called root bond. It's called root bond also.
Leslie, put on your camera, no?
One sec. One sec.
Not when a tree is growing in the earth. Only when it's growing on a plant.
It continues to happen also after it is transferred from the pot to the ground. It remains in that way. It doesn't allow the plant to grow with its roots girdled around its vein.
What's the solution here, Leslie?
Nothing, like you said, it generally dies. It's very difficult for it to grow. That's why a plant is not taken for a long time. It is taken, it has to be removed out at the right proportion time when it is growing in the pot. It has to be transferred to the ground at the right time. It cannot be kept in the pot for a long time.
It is called root bound in the pot, and one has to replant it again in another soil, another fertilizer, and in the right conditions. It has to be monsoon moisture in the air, then only the plant can be replanted.
Correct.
I think that's a very excellent name for it, because it fits in with what Leslie and who was it? Rekha talked about. Yes, that it needs to be replanted or only a particular time, but you can make it grow again.
Right. So it needs a lot of care at that point in time.
So analogy is with human being is equally true, that if the person is unhappy, surrounded people must take care of that person with taking right care, nurturing the person, giving lot of love, affection, etc. and at the right time also. Thank you.
Suyash has something to add.
I thought Dr. Bharucha wanted to say something.
Yes, can we have Dr. Bharucha speak? His hand is raised.
Yeah, just a small thing. It's a beautifully told story, and Sunita, you brought it out so very well. Thank you very much. But it's very interesting because it deals with a lot of ecology, because any island ecology is very, very special. It has high endemicism. And the whole thing winding around the ficus tree is very, very special, because the ficus tree is a keystone species in modern ecology. And of course, we know about it from the time of Buddha and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of history behind the ficus, but there's also a lot of modern ecological science, because the ficus what we think of as a fruit is actually a drupe, which is a bunch of flowers inside. And unless an insect goes inside the ficus drupe and pollinates those flowers, it doesn't grow, it doesn't become seeds. And that's what we eat. So all of us vegetarians who eat the ficus fruit are also eating a lot of insects. But as it is, it's a very special thing. And Cyprus is a very special island because of its very varied conditions in the sea. Island biogeography is a very special science now. And people have referred to Cyprus very often in ecological sciences. So it's wonderful that she's got this nature thing together with a very good background of good science. So thank you very much. Lovely story.
Suyash, you want to add something?
No, sorry. Actually, what happened when the discussion started? When the discussion had started about the fig tree, so I was just doing some Google. So I just shared the information to everyone in the group that you guys are all are on the same page. Like basically, fig trees has 9 species in which Indian, Chinese, and lot many. So even it was a new knowledge for me. So yeah, that's all. I didn't want to add anything to the story. Sorry.
But good to have
That's
you
it.
speaking out and all.
Sunita, I was thinking that, it's another Romeo and Juliet kind of thing, these two lovers who cannot, according to social sanctions, get together. But I'm glad that they do get together ultimately. So she's brought a more realistic and more complex aspect to the story. When they do get together, they do manage to leave, but she cannot quite come to terms with what has happened and so on. That's very interesting.
Yeah, she likes to speak. I think in many of her books she talks about. She calls this inherited pain. That it's things that we talk about genetics and that I got my nose from my mother, or I got my eyes from and the color of my hair and things like that. But what about memories and what about pain? And she believes that too is inherited, and she brings that out in the book as well. Ada and the fig tree are, in a way they feel similar things, and there is an inherited pain. And she talks about also when people leave their homeland and they're pushed out of their homeland or they leave. It's the first generation that has the most trauma, right? They have to get adjusted to a new place, and they have to find their roots in a way. They have to find that sense of belonging. And it's the generation after that, it's the second generation that just goes out and they're born there, right? So they just flourish over there. But she believes that in all her research, it's the third generation that goes back to asking the questions and wanting to know more and wanting to explore, explore the silence, she calls it, because people, they don't want to talk about that hurt and that pain. And memory is important, and she keeps saying this collective amnesia that we choose to have is not correct. It is memory that is going to help you remember, and if you remember, it is going to help you repair, because if you don't repair, then you will just repeat. And it's nice to say that, but I just feel history has shown us that we just keep repeating and repeating and repeating. I don't, we had partition in India. No, the world didn't learn from it for sure. But, and the wars have happened, there's a war still going on. In 2022, there is a war that is going on as we speak. So, yeah, it just.
Human nature.
It was very beautiful, Sunita. It was really lovely. What I wanted to ask you is that these two, Daphne and Kostas, come from very different religious backgrounds. But in the story, that does not come as a source of conflict at all. All right, that's lovely. But this concept of migration, it's a universal truth, I think. I think Kashmiri Pandits still feel the loss of their homeland. And I think it occurs again and again. And in that sense, it's a kind of universal message and significance.
Yeah, I suppose so. But there are different.
1 minute. There are two things that I wanted to say. Kaveri, you talked about history and people don't understand it. And that's what happens. History repeats itself again and again and again. And
Right.
you can see it, what is happening all over the world right now. It's just being repeated. That's a thing which Barunde told us way back. Well, he was a professor at IMCAL. Then the other thing that I wanted to say is this. When you see the Sindhis were the ones who came in. Initially, they did not, they lived in housing societies, not even housing societies, but areas that were given to them. They were considered a part of the thing as what you have.
Refugee camps.
Yeah. So, but the second generation has come out and have been doing well. And maybe the third generation will start looking behind it. We do not know. But the second generation came out from there, and Sindhis have taken over business and taken over Pune time. Do you remember Pune without the Sindhis? No. When we first came to Pune, it was Maharashtrian and army. That was all that was there. Education and army was all that was there. Okay, who wanted to speak? Someone else raised his hand.
Hey, Latika want to speak.
Latika, come on.
No, I was thinking that, Sunita, didn't you mention something about the trees, the roots of the trees kind of throttling memory? What we were saying about trees, the roots of the trees.
Of the tree throttling the tree.
Yeah.
And similarly, right? Sunita?
Sorry, I can you just repeat that? My machine crashed, so I'm here.
No, when you were speaking, you spoke about the roots of trees, which are obviously underground, but they sort of throttle, is it? They throttle the trunk?
Yes, in that, yeah, that's what they were talking about when the girdling happens, and just like Leslie mentioned, when he speaks about the chestnut tree, it was actually in a pot, which is why the roots were under the soil, but they were actually choking the trunk of the tree.
So what occurred to me was that a writer can use this metaphor of roots in any way. I mean, in this case, it was choking. In another case, the depth of the roots would give you another personality altogether. So you can use it in any way you want.
Yes, rootedness, like W.B. Yeats talks about the rootedness of a tree, of the great, one of those big banyan tree kind of things. Yeah. And he talks about the rootedness and how the life that emanates from that kind of rootedness is so significant.
Exactly,
the blossoming, the blooming.
But in this case, it's different.
Yes, because of the strength that the roots have given you.
Mohini, I think Suresh wanted to say something. He's been writing some things around. So let him speak it.
Yeah, no. Actually, if I miss out the chance, right? So I just put down it there, like, so that like this is what I felt when you guys are discussing something. So in that context, I don't have many things to say. It's just that.
Can you vocalize what you wrote?
Sorry.
Can you speak what you wrote?
Yes. Yeah, sure. I'll do it. So when it was mentioned that when I wrote that rootless, when Sunita had said that the feeling that people feel when they leave the country, or like the first generation she was talking about. So then like the first generation feels rootless, second tries its best, and the third one, what I wrote later was when the third generation feels out of place in a foreign country, for example. So they try to look for answers in their history, like what exactly went wrong and why do we feel out of place. And then when the discussion was about the roots which are throttling the main core of the tree. So it's more like something is holding you back, or you kind of blame your ancestors for the challenges that you face today. So something, I mean, I was just trying to make parallels in my mind as to like what could be what's the metaphor for roots in this example. So it's many things related to that exodus, which, I mean, when people migrate, it's not a I've been there, so I
Ajay,
tried.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, so yeah,
But
I
there would be a
could relate.
difference, wouldn't there, between, let us say, migration, which could be voluntary, and it
Of
could
course,
not be voluntary, it could be an
of course.
exile.
Yeah,
So these are, then
exactly.
you
Like
have,
either
memories are very different because the reasons for
yes,
your
yes.
departure are different.
No, but no matter how the migration happens, even if you're happily going, still
Yeah.
there
Yes.
is
Yes.
Of
a
course, you carry
void.
a,
There is a
sure.
void that you leave in
Yes.
yourself,
Yes.
which if you don't get good experience outside, that void will always be there.
Yes. Yes.
So in Swadesh movie, there is this dialogue when an old lady tells to Shah Rukh Khan saying that अपने पानी में पिघल जाना बर्फ का मुकद्दर होता है something, and he says like because he wants to take his old auntie back to US with him, and some other old lady tells him that you can't really do that. Like at old age, you can't take people out of their comfort zone. So
Correct.
she says to Shah Rukh Khan that अपने इसमें पिघल जाना बर्फ का मुकद्दर होता है. So he kind of gets it, and then he comes and settles down back in the country.
Very
Well
well.
said. Well said,
Excellent.
Suyash.
Excellent.
Suyash had been a regular member. I pulled his ears and said, "Where the hell are you? Come back again!" And then now he's come there with full vengeance. I would like to ask Soni. Soni is the one person who's mainly stays in Ghana, and how does she feel about moving from Ghana to India and India to Ghana as she regularly does?
India was very interesting about 2008 when NRIs were being welcomed with open arms to make investments, which did not do well till 2022. But in spite of that, the feeling of home doesn't go away. Whatever India has become, people sitting outside can paint it black, and I still disagree. I still think home is home. Pune is home. And I had a very strange experience when we went to visit Wagah border. This is going back good 8 to 10 years ago. And I was so emotional, completely broken into tears. And it was some place that maybe my parents must have crossed into India. And we now have a theory, people who are on the same wavelength, we have a theory that our psyche has stored that partition, that experience, which we haven't lost. It's there. Yes. And it started from the series Bunyad, going back in time, when Bunyad series started. Yeah. And I would sit there literally in tears. And even now, like I was just reading Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan. And it was terrible, terrible. And my parents are no more. I was born in Bombay at that time. And I have never been to Pakistan. But there's something missing. You want to go back. And now I'm going to be 70. I don't think I'll ever do it. But maybe reading more and communicating more with people helps.
So this is very interesting. I must say it's very interesting because you're born in India, but you still have that kind of feeling for across the border. That's very interesting.
Yes.
Normally, if people have come from Pakistan, you'd have that, expect that, no?
My last living uncle is 84 now, and I'm really looking forward to spending these last 2 days of this visit with him to learn more about Pakistan and his early memories, how they came to Chembur camp, and from there they were shifted to Kolaba camp, and we were all refugee camps there. Ulhasnagar was camp number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 camps were there. And these are part of, whether you know them or not, it's in you, it's in the back of your mind, it's all there. So
I think you've grown up with the stories, right, from your parents. It's that sense of identity. Now, by the way, I just want to say one thing which may be straying a little too much from the point, but I'd like to say it. And then I can see that Dr. Bharucha has his hand up, so we will go back to him. But, lately there has been talk of not forgetting. Do not forget the wounds. This has been the sort of, what shall I say, the official point of view that we should not forget. I'm just wondering, are we harming ourselves by keeping those wounds open? I mean, should we really keep those wounds open? Because it keeps the hatred alive. And surely we must move on. I mean, even Hitler's Germany had to move on, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Indu, welcome to you.
I
I
just want to
agree.
add one thing here, Satish, before you move on, that in this remembering and not forgetting, the fig tree says that she's cursed because there is a great Cyprian, in Cyprus, there is a curse that you would give someone, and it's not that may lightning strike you and you die, or that, may you lose all your wealth. The curse in Cyprus is, may you never forget. And she talks about the tree talks about how she is cursed because she cannot forget. So she remembers everything that is there.
Oh my God. Yeah.
No, I think Hindus raised a hand, and
Yes.
after Hindu, Shah Sultan has come here for the first time.
Okay. Dr. Bharucha, your hand is up. Do you want to say something, or has it just got left on?
Just a very small thing, because I
Yeah.
didn't mention it last time. If any of you grow bonsai, you know that once you have to repot, then the tap root curves around and goes, it becomes circular. And that very often what the bonsai grower is supposed to do is to pull it outwards and shorten that tap root so that this strangling effect doesn't happen.
Okay.
So there's a lot of science in that beautiful book.
So nature
seems to come out in different ways.
Interesting.
I think Indu and then Shah Sultan.
Yes, Indu, please.
This whole thing about roots reminded me of Alex Haley's book called Roots, in which he went looking for his roots in Africa. Backward travel to say that every human being feels that he is somebody and is an accretion of memories, as Sunita pointed out, that we cannot escape from those memories. And we need something, it's like a bank.
Yeah, they define us.
Hold on to it. And it gives us inspiration and confidence of who we are. What am I? You are somebody from some family, from some source, and you have memories, and you have a culture, and you have something, and so you want to tap it and get to it. And this story seems to illustrate that point very well.
I just like to add something. I think that's correct.
Yeah.
But are we looking at this from a quote-unquote literary point of view? Because when I lived in Delhi, I met scores of people who had spent their youth who had been born that side in Pakistan, and they came here. No one ever spoke about Pakistan. No one spoke about their childhood. I mean, here we are discussing literature, therefore, in stories, you talk of roots, you talk of where you come from, how important that is, when does it come to the fore, etc. But I met so many people who had never mentioned Pakistan. They've just gone on with their lives. So is this a kind of a literary thing? Or is this in reality, that people are rooted and that comes up? And all? I don't know.
Latika, I grew up in North India, and we had a large number of people, friends, etc., who were from Lahore and other places. And at their homes, you could see that the conversation would slowly move into that very easily, and they would be talking about it. They would be talking about some father or grandfather who was left behind, or some. Of course, everyone said that there are acres and acres of land down there. That was what they used to say. And then that, of course, brought us.
I didn't meet. I met
that
people who are very much
all
in the
were
present.
told about acres of land. If all those acres were added up, it would be the whole world as such. The way they used to talk. Okay, where's?
I think I may have to leave. I have someone waiting for me.
I just want to add one thing, if you don't mind.
Please, Farooq, go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is that, Nasima comes from Karachi. I got married in Karachi and Nasima has moved from Karachi to India. And I can see how much she misses Karachi, and the cultural thing about Karachi, the food that they eat, the type of festivals that they have, and the whole environment of Karachi, Urdu speaking Karachi. I mean, those are the memories she always continuously reminds me that she has come from Karachi, and मुझे लगता है कि अब मैंने कुछ कभी-कभी गड़बड़ कर दिया क्या? But actually, I mean, the way we have kept her very happy and nice, so she is very comfortable in India. But given a chance, she wants to go to Karachi the next day. But because of this political thing, it becomes very difficult to get a visa and all that crap. बहुत तकलीफ होता है, and then you can only be in Karachi, you cannot go anywhere. But she remembers Karachi and the Pakistan like anything. So memories to rehte hai, and if you are married in India, okay, you can always go to Lucknow, Delhi, you always meet. But when you are across the border, so you can today go to USA very easily, England very easily, but going to Pakistan, which is just 1 hour flight from Bombay, it's so difficult. And that is the thing which really hurts her like hell, especially when her relatives are sick, her mother died, and all those things, and it's troublesome, when you have somebody who you love, they are in ICU, you can't even meet them. It's वैसा बहुत तकलीफ होता है थोड़ा. So that is a fact that you miss here.
Shall we have Shah Sultan come and before
her mic and video are off? Yeah.
Is they off?
Shah Sultan.
Shah Sultan, she does not have a mic on, and I have requested her to keep her mic on, but she's
Shah Sultan, I think your mic is on because
I think let's have Anil until Shah Sultan is ready.
Anil, please come on.
Indu Kulkarni ma'am's camera, I mean the person who is in the camera right now, he has raised his hand.
Anil is going to speak. Yes. Yes, Anil.
Yeah, about these memories, I mean, what Latika was saying, I have met many Sindhis who, if we spend some time with them, they keep talking about their memories. Yeah. I have a colleague and a friend who talked about, he has mixed feelings about Pakistan. There is a lot of negativity. At the same time, he was telling me that his mother was very young when they left, that is in 47, and their neighbors protected her and him. So I hear these mixed stories all the time. In fact, there is a book written by, edited by a Sindhi person about Sindhis talking about their memories. And in that, there is also the opposite, in the sense that there are Muslims who have gone to Pakistan and they remember India with equally mixed feelings.
Yes.
So this is very true. So this whole, I think this was a brilliant presentation, and I'm going to read this book because it talks about roots and memories and how they can have good and evil influences on you. Both. And what somebody was saying is that we should forget history. We have to forget. It's not easy to forget history.
I know.
There is a good part of it, and there is also the bad part of it. I think it is human destiny that we repeat history.
Yeah, all the mistakes.
Sorry.
That's
okay.
That's
Shah Sultan, can you hear me?
Shah Sultan does not have a mic, Satish. She cannot speak.
Okay. Then who else is left? Sony has spoken. We have Mandakini is there. She's not spoken here at all. Mandakini used to speak quite a lot then, but now you're not speaking. Mo, I think we have done it all.
Satish, in between, I lost a lot of Sunita's presentation because suddenly the lights went off and I was without connectivity. So I missed out a lot.
Okay, okay.
But
nevertheless, would you like to say something?
Would you like to say something about?
As per what you did here, would you like to say something? We'd love to hear you.
About the book?
Yes.
About the book, about partition, etc.
About memories, about history, about identity.
Partition. I was born in India. I've lived in India not all my life. Before coming to Pune, I spent 32 long years in the USA. And one thing I can tell you, we had a perfectly happy, comfortable life, but the sense of belonging was never there. I never felt that this is my home. Home was always India.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We got the picture. And
Yeah.
okay, more anyone else?
Is there anyone else? I mean, I have a very small view here.
Leslie? Leslie?
Maybe not. Sunita,
Thanks.
Leslie is satisfied with
the
what
discussion has gone.
More, take it on now.
I enjoyed the book.
Pardon?
Leslie says he enjoyed the book.
I enjoyed the presentation very much. I always look forward to book clubs.
I'm glad. Please
Good
do
to
come
know.
regularly. More,
So,
take on.
yes, I was inviting Sunita to come back before we conclude. Would you at all like to comment on the way the discussion has gone?
No, I think Elif Shafak would be very happy with how the discussion went in terms of speaking about identity, belonging, this whole thing about feeling rooted, multiple things.
Not getting your sound clearly.
Yeah, no, it's clear. It's clear. Sunita, you're clear. Maybe Moini,
come closer to the mic and speak.
Okay. So I think Elif Shafak would be very happy with how the discussion went in terms of identity and belonging, because that's really the themes that she wants to bring about herself, about memories, about us not forgetting, just so that we don't repeat our mistakes. I don't know how much that is just wishful thinking, but I think all that came up in the discussion. So it was wonderful. So and thank you, Moini, for giving me this opportunity. I just love this book, and I'm so glad I got to present it.
Thank you, Sunita. And as always, you did a great job of it. So thank you very much. Okay, so
wish Soni Walecha bon voyage. She's leaving in a few days' time for
back to Ghana. Yes,
Ghana,
Soni,
yes.
all the very best. Have a good flight, safe landing, and all the best.
And keep in touch.
So we'll conclude now. So thank you very much, Sunita. Soni speaking. Are you speaking?
I will stay in touch. I attend every.
Sorry, did I hear someone speak?
Yeah. Soni is speaking. Soni Walecha is speaking.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to pay every alternate.
Well, it's twice a month, I can't say exactly which Sundays, but just look at the calendar and you'll know, because that depends on, convenience and also holidays. I have avoided Sundays which are attached to holidays, Diwali, Dasera, that kind of thing. So 2 Sundays in a month, please look at the calendar so that you know. Okay, so Sunita, thank you. Thank you everyone who came, who expressed themselves. And let me tell you what we're going to have in the future. So on the 21st of August, we have a presentation on Kazuo Ishiguro's new book, Clara and the Sun. And in September, on the 4th of September, we have a book called Top Dog, Underdog, which sounds very, very interesting to me, by Susan Laurie Parks. On the 18th of September, we have Homeland Elegies by Ayad Akhtar. And this Homeland Elegies also, resonates in the directions that we have been talking in. So this is also about home and your associations. And it's a very, very well-written and very thought-provoking book. So Shanti Menon is going to be doing that. So these are the books that we have to look forward to. We are booked till the end of November, which is nice. People, all those of you who have read something that you have enjoyed and would like to share it with us, please let me know so that I can schedule you. Okay? All the best, everyone. Farooq, would you like the last word?
Yeah. I just want to say that we are going to do, first of all, Sunita, fantastic program as usual, and more so with your beautiful haircut and new Anyway, so I just wanted to tell you that, with the help of Satish and Apurva Bahadur, we are organizing 3 programs in the near future. One of them is on 19th, which is a Friday. We are having Sudhanshu Mani, who is a very famous railway guy. And he'll be explaining how the train 18, which went on to make this Apeksha Express or God knows Duronto Express, the trains which run at 160 kilometers per hour. So it's a Gyanpedia program, and we will be conducting that program at 7:30 on 19th. On 27th, we have Satish Khote's friend who had done the program on jazz in January this year, how jazz music has has influenced Bollywood music. And he has written a book called what's Light Camera War. And this is about 50 war movies that were created by Bollywood or the cinema in India, including Hindi, Tamil, Kannada and all. And Ramesh will be speaking on those, how the war movies were made, how badly they were made and how nicely they were made, which were the successes and which were the not successes. Ramesh is very good. He makes them very entertaining. And I thank Satish for bringing Ramesh. On October 15th, we have another Satish's friend from USA, Robert D'Souza, who is going to conduct a program called Kipling's India. And he's visited 3 natural forest reserves, and he'll be talking about, and he's a very good photographer. So, and he had done last year a program on camouflage and how camouflage is, how animals use camouflage in their background. So on 15th of October, and Nasima is still working on Gopinath Narang, the famous Urdu writer who died in the month of June. So these 4 programs, and we are trying to bring something from the Guldasta Urdu and Gyanpedia. Unfortunately, in Guldasta Urdu, we lost 2 of our key people last year, and this year Mumtaz is a bit not in good position to take programs. But anyway, we are trying. So with that, I like to end the program. Satish and Moini.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And bon voyage to you. Have a good time in Switzerland.
I'm going in 4th of September.
He's here yet. He's here for our next program. So 21st August, folks. Let's see you for the next session of the book club.
Yeah.
Bye-bye and happy reading.
Yeah.
All the best. Take care.
Take care. Take care. And the program is on Facebook. It's presently live going on. I'll be putting the links in the groups.
Thanks.